Hello, everybody. Before we begin, I want to start by expressing, both personally and on behalf of the whole organization, our deepest sorrow, sympathy, and condolences to the family of Danielle Breed Long. Her senseless killing on Friday night left us all with feelings of profound shock, outrage, sadness, and grief. There are two families today that are shattered and feeling unimaginable pain, and our hearts go out to them. I'll take your questions.
Theo, uh, Theo, there was obviously a report over the weekend about your future with the club, and just to get an update on that, have you met with Tom yet? And what are the chances that you do step down or step aside before your contract is up after next season?
Yeah. Look, after every season, we get together as leadership, baseball ops leadership and ownership, and we talk about the state of the club, the state of the organization, what lies ahead in the future, how to improve going forward, how to position ourselves for long-term success. So, and as part of that process, I usually meet one-on-one with Tom as well. So those are meetings that we're looking forward to having. We were hoping to do it quietly and behind the scenes. We'll still do it as quietly as possible. But I think that that was the thrust of the article, was essentially that we're going to meet, and we do that every year. Look, I've been transparent about my feeling that after a certain period of time, there can be real benefit for both an individual leader and for the organization for change. And I've not backed away. I think I mentioned it the first day I was a Cub, and again when I signed my second contract. So I'm not going to run away from those feelings, but I also am as invested in the Chicago Cubs as our leader in baseball operations today as I was at any point in the last 9 years. And I woke up this morning, thinking about how we can improve for next year and position ourselves for long-term success. But given the things I'm on record with about the benefits of change at a certain point, it just means that you have to be smart in discussing the timing and nature of a transition, because it's inevitable at some point. My expectation is that I'll be here, and my expectation also is that I'm going to do whatever is best for the Cubs every day, and that means being thoughtful about a transition whenever that may come. But I'm focused on the 2021 Cubs and how to position ourselves for long-term success.
Hey Theo, when you guys sit down to evaluate this season and how you want to move forward, do you look at it and say, okay, this was a unique year that we've never seen before, and we can't put too much into the product that we saw because of everything going on in the world right now? Or do you say, okay, what we saw is characteristic of some of the clubs we've seen for the last 3 years, and we really need to make a change there?
Yeah, I think it's important to take a balanced approach, recognizing it's important to recognize the unique nature of this year and what players had to go through without using it as a crutch or an excuse. It's appropriate to recognize the limitations of a 60-game sample relative to a 162-game sample and what that means. And I can go into further detail on both of those things if you guys choose. But it's also important to recognize that these games counted. They were really important. They were, each game was almost 3 times as important as a normal game, and that we were competing, giving everything that we had to win. And so just as and we can break down the season more if you wish. But just as there was a lot to be proud of with what our players accomplished this year and what we accomplished as an organization, we also have to own the shortcomings and not write them off as some product of unique circumstances or short season. And the reality is that our biggest issue this year, the thing that we were not proud of, was our offensive production, and following the pattern of the last 3 years, especially when it counted the most down the stretch and into October. So that's something that we have to own, but any proper assessment of things that transpired this year include an adjustment for context and circumstances, to gain deeper understanding into it.
Just to get back to your initial comments about your role, knowing that organizations always look 3, 5, 7 years down the line, would you be open at this point, if your meeting with Tom goes this way, to transitioning to a different role this year, with the idea that neither you or him know for sure what will be happening after this season?
Yeah. As I said earlier, I'm fully invested in the Cubs and open to anything that's in the best interest of the organization. I think my expectation and Tom's expectation is that means status quo for now as we go into 2021, but a status quo that is mindful of the importance of transition planning and mindful of some of the unique circumstances that we have. We're clearly entering an off-season that will require some critical decisions that have long-term impacts for the organization on the field and some off the field as well. So because of that, we're just going to be open-minded and thoughtful about it and take our time. And if adjustments in structure or role or timing are necessary to put the Cubs in the best possible position going forward, then that's what I want. I think we all feel like the most likely outcome, again, is status quo, but in a thoughtful manner as we move forward.
Theo, what's your criteria in terms of making this decision? I know you said kind of 10 years when you got here, but the world has changed a lot since then. Your personal life has changed. I guess, how will you kind of come to this decision? What sort of recommendations will you make to ownership?
Yeah, I understand the question, guys, and the with the story this weekend, the focus on me, but this is really about the Cubs and the process of doing everything we can to put the organization to continue to be on solid footing and move forward and try to improve our performance first of all, get back to the postseason in 21, win the division again in 21, and then perform better in the postseason while setting ourselves up for another run of long-term success. And that's a challenge. It's a difficult environment out there, and being mindful of a potential transition, even one that might be a year away or an indefinite period of time away, is a smart thing to do. So how will I make that decision? I'm by showing up to work every day, being collaborative, open-minded, and putting the interests of the Cubs organization first. And that's how we've attacked the last 9 years, and that's how we'll operate moving forward. And we just haven't had those discussions yet. We've obviously been, had talks over the years on a semi-regular basis about the future, what it looks like, the importance of being aware of potential transitions and planning for them. But now that the season's over, those discussions move to another phase where they're more concrete, and we have to do an open, honest, thorough accounting of where we are as an organization, what our individual futures look like, and how to best serve the Cubs. So that's what we're going to do.
Would a contract extension, is that something that you would want to discuss also?
Again, I've been pretty transparent just about, I think for me as an individual, I think there's benefit to change after, a significant amount of time on the job. And like I said, about a decade. And I think I have to keep that in mind without making any definitive statements. Like, we will be definitive. We will have a transition plan. We will have a structure moving forward. It's just we can't share that with you guys. We haven't gone through that process, and we're gonna do what's in the best interest for the Cubs. But I have to be honest with myself. My own values, beliefs, strengths, limitations, and recognize that as I look at what is best for the Cubs, and we'll continue to talk about this as we go forward.
Theo, a year ago, you said that essentially that there was nobody untouchable on the roster, and that you were going to look at all avenues for improving. Obviously, you more or less stood pat, certainly with the core. Does that still apply this year? And if you did want to make changes that are more than just minor changes, do you have any indication that the means exists in this landscape to do that?
Yeah, I think it is certainly still the case that there are no untouchables. That's been our policy for 9 years, and I think the policy of most teams. And clearly, some change is warranted and necessary. We have not performed up to our expectations offensively, and especially at the most important times of year, and sort of simply hoping for a better outcome moving forward doesn't seem like a thoughtful approach. So embracing some change, even significant change, is warranted. As far as is that possible? Is it possible to thread the needle and improve in 2021 while also setting ourselves up for the long-term future? I think it is. On one hand, we have to be honest about our performance, and we have not gotten to the point with our offensive production that we expected to get to. With a number of players who are really talented and have done some remarkable things in this game. MVP awards, MVP consideration, all-star, consistent offensive performance by certain guys at a really high level. And to have the year we had this year, we have to own that. We expected our offense and our core position group to be our strength, as guys are 27, 28 years old, some guys 30, 31. We expected it to be a strength, and it hasn't. So we have to be honest about that. And it's a challenging environment out there. That said, we have a lot going for us as an organization moving forward, and a lot of chips to bring to the table with us this offseason, both in terms of building a very strong and improved team in 2021, and also, in some instances, being transactional as we see how the marketplace unfolds. So we have two of the best starting pitchers in the game on good contracts moving forward. Our most important relief pitcher righted himself after the first 3 or 4 outings of the year and pitched at a level of dominance over the last 2/3 of the season that is in line with his career norms. Our 3 most valuable position players this year by WAR in Ian Happ, Jason Hayward, and Wilson Contreras are all under club control for multiple years going forward. We have 4 really accomplished big bats who are coming off career worst years, who are all entering contract years. A really sound defense. I think an excellent manager coming off a great first year, and coaching staff. There's a lot to work with going forward. That said, especially offensively, we have to be really open to going back to the drawing board, and embracing some change. There are players on our roster who are part of the solution offensively, who are going to be part of the next really productive Cubs offense, including in October. And there are players from outside the organization who are too. So we have to figure that out.
You kind of touched on it right there, but you have 4 players heading into their free agent year. And if I remember last year, basically ownership doesn't want it to be where there's all 4 of those guys are hitting free agency and leave, and there's this cliff that falls off. How can you correct that this offseason? How imperative is it that it happens this winter or before next trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly something we've been mindful of for a while, and there's always a trade-off in, being transactional and taking some of those talented players away from the current group and solidifying the future. There are trade-offs and balances that you have to be mindful of, and the math simply changes. As you get to a point where a lot of your best players only have 1 year left, it becomes less appealing to continue to invest sort of opportunity cost in simply the present. We have to find a way to win in 2021 and also solidify a future. It's not enough to just move forward completely as is and then deal with these issues at the end of the next year. There are issues that we've been mindful of. We've been making adjustments as we go, but the sort of impactful, significant moves that change the mix and set ourselves up better for post 2021 have not gotten across the finish line. I think the math changes a little bit. Like those moves, consideration of those moves is certainly called for as we enter this offseason.
Theo, as you're watching down the stretch in those two games in the playoffs, what is going through your mind in the moment regarding your offense? I mean, there's that thought that maybe guys can be gotten out the same way. Your righties can be gotten out the same way. Lefties are they too similar? What's your thought as you're watching this?
No, I mean, I think this year was different in a lot of ways. Same result, unfortunately, down the stretch, but we were getting beat in the strike zone by fastballs, and that's not something that had really happened in the past. So, to me, when really good hitters are getting beat in the strike zone by fastballs, it means they're off. They're off, and they don't have their rhythm, they don't have their timing, they're caught in between, they don't have their confidence, they're not locked in with their approach. And obviously you guys watched us all year. Like we were struggling with that all year. Most of our hitters, we were struggling with that all year, and it had been a constant grind to bust out of that slump, team wide and individually. A lot of work. A lot of creativity trying to find the answer, and it just didn't happen. So it wasn't like watching the same thing, except the results were painfully. But it was more troubling in that when you get beat by fastballs in the zone, then you don't have your foundation as a hitter, and you're not likely to see a good outcome. So clearly that's something that we have to address, and we can't just write it off to a bad moment in time or the unique circumstances, while also being mindful that it was really, really hard for these guys to make adjustments this year. Look, league wide, I think the pressure of making the adjustment, getting out of the slump, knowing that there's only 60 games to play with, wore heavy on a lot of guys and on our guys too. But it still happened. It's still real. We have to own it, and we have to reclaim that offensive foundation of being on the fastball, owning the strike zone, and being a much more difficult at bat. And that does mean adding different dimensions to our offense going forward. We can't be the same exact type of offense and expect better results.
Theo, in this unique season, just how did you assess the work of the coaching staff, and is that an area that there could be change looking ahead?
Yeah, I'm proud of the work of our manager and coaching staff this year. First and foremost, their leadership role, along with our players and staff, and keeping everybody healthy, and the discipline and sacrifice that was needed every day. On the field, there was tremendous work ethic displayed. There was tremendous buy-in. It was a grind to make adjustments. Look, again, the offensive production was the area where we fell short. I think our starting pitching did a fantastic job. Losing Quintana and Chatwood, and still putting the rotation out there that we did. The bullpen, after that first week or 10 days, having the performance that we did was outstanding. Our defense, our base running, our framing, in a lot of areas, our coaching staff buoyed our players, supported our players, and put them in a position to succeed. It didn't happen offensively, and it was not from lack of effort. It was not from lack of attempted adjustments or lack of creativity. So we'll go through our normal process. We have not had exit interviews yet, given how hard it was on everyone to be away from their families. We didn't keep guys around an extra couple of days to do exit interviews. We told everyone to get back with their families as soon as possible, as safely as possible, and to take a week to digest the season, and then we would have some Zoom exit interviews going forward. So, yeah, we have to hear from Rossi. I know. As a general rule, he was thrilled by the work of the coaching staff, while also recognizing where we fell short. So, we'll just put our heads together on that and move forward. But I'm proud of the work from those guys this year.
As far as the minor league system goes, how do you and the baseball department envision how ready some of your prospects are? And do you feel that this will be adequate going forward if you're not able to make a number of moves with your core players in your 25-man roster?
Well, obviously it was a challenging year in player development, not having a minor league season, and we still got a lot of work done. Our staff was very determined to still make an impact on our prospects, and there was a lot of coaching going on, a lot of work, and a lot of positive development. Obviously at the alternate site in South Bend, but also through our player development app and through a lot of one-on-one virtual coaching sessions. So we're excited about the progress that a lot of our prospects made under the circumstances, but we also recognize that there's no way to quantify the consequences of not having a minor league season throughout the organization and throughout the industry. So I think we'll get a better feel for that. Instructional League, I think we're about 3 days in Instructs down in Arizona. We'll get a better feel for where players are at. We're going to be able to play some games down there. And then we're also going to get better visibility into 2021, preparing for everything from a completely normal spring training and minor league season to, potentially a spring training or a minor league season that has significant adjustments to help everyone get through 2021 as safely as possible too. So I feel like there's a lot of talent in our farm system right now, and that obviously the world didn't get to see the progress that was made in certain areas, and I'm excited about what that might look like in 2021.
Yeah, I know you don't talk much about your finances of the team, but I wonder, because of everything that's gone on, if you can set some sort of expectation for payroll. And I mean, I think the team has already indicated they may not expect full capacity starting April 1st. Those kinds of things all are in play, obviously. Can you tell the fans what kind of situation you're in payroll-wise?
Yeah, the only thing I can acknowledge is that we're in a period of great uncertainty. That's industry-wide, and also as far as our organization goes. I mean, if you think about it, we're at a point where we do not know. We know what our losses were this year. We don't know what our revenues are going to be next year. We don't know, how many fans we're going to be able to have and at what different points in the season. Because of that and the fact that 29 other teams are in a similar situation, we don't know what the free agent marketplace is going to look like, what the trade marketplace is going to look like. There's some competitive unknowns too. Like it is completely understandable, but as we sit here today, we don't know how many teams are going to make the playoffs, what the schedule is going to look like, what the roster size is going to be, what the playing rules are going to be, designated hitter or not. So there are just so many unknowns, and I bring that up just to underscore the uncertainty. And so our job isn't just to sit there and shrug our shoulders and say, well, there's uncertainty, we can't do anything. It's to be really systematic about asking the right questions, getting to the right answers, using each day as an opportunity to try to properly forecast the different range of possible outcomes, and then be really strategic about our plan moving forward, acknowledging the uncertainty along the way. So we need to be versatile. We need to be adjustable, and we need to be effective despite the uncertainty of the landscape.
Theo, I know you said you haven't done exit interviews yet, but how do you anticipate conversations with John Lester going? And if this is the end, how do you look back on the last 6 years that he's provided here?
Yeah, I was actually texting with John last night. I think we're going to talk over the next couple of days. But yeah, look, it remains to be seen whether John has pitched his last game as a Cub or not. There's certainly the possibility that he continues to call Wrigley Field home, but whether he leaves or stays, this is an appropriate time just to acknowledge the profound impact that he had on our organization. I mean, it's rare when someone joins an organization with some clear goals in mind, to win a World Series, to change a culture, to show up in October and just about every year and pitch really well in big games, to be a great teammate, to be someone the organization can be proud of, to make an impact on his teammates and in his community, and accomplish all those goals in such an admirable manner. So we owe him a great debt of gratitude. We were investing in John Lester, the person, every bit as much as we were investing in John Lester, the pitcher, and he came through in both areas for us in typical John Lester fashion. So huge tip of the cap to him. He's made a huge impact on Chicago Cubs baseball, and remains to be seen what the future holds. But yeah, he's someone I really admire and always will.
I think the last time we talked to you, the theme was kind of what this group core had accomplished together. As you sit and try to figure out the future, could a reality be that this core has run its course together?
Again, it's just because of all the unknowns, I don't think we're in a position to definitively state, that this is an end. At the same time, like I talked about being accountable and owning it, like we can't continue to run the exact same offense, the exact same group of guys out there and expect better results. So I think the best way to approach this is that acknowledging that we're at a period of real transition, and some of these guys are going to be parts of the solution in the next productive Cubs offense, and there's also going to be contributions from guys who are not in the organization right now. So we've had a lot of belief in this group to our benefit over 6 years and everything that we accomplished. And we don't have to go over it again. We talked about it ad nauseum last week, but including in October of 2015, 16, and 17. And, if one wants to turn that around and say that it's been to our detriment the last 3 Octobers, I can own that too. We have not lived up to our expectations the last 3 Octobers, and ultimately that's something we have to own as a group, and I have to wear that as a leader and as an executive. That belief is, I think, well founded in what they've done for this franchise and what they've accomplished on the field. But I acknowledge we've fallen short. We don't have that dominant offensive core, productive offensive core, showing up every year at the most important times like we thought we would have. So I think it's important to be open, or clear-minded, clear-eyed about what we have and what we need to do better, and the need for some change, without declaring an end for all these players. Like, these players are 27 years old, 28 years old, 30 years old, 31 years old. Like, these players have a lot of great baseball left and are clear assets. And I look forward, for many of them, I look forward to seeing them write some more history for the Chicago Cubs, and others ultimately will end up, having productive years elsewhere. So it's just part of change. Is it an end? No. Is it a bit of a crossroads and clearly a period of transition? Yes.
You talked about the deficiencies of the offense. Obviously, contact is one of them. How high of a priority is acquiring an established contact hitter, and how confident do you feel that you can pull that off?
Yeah, contact is hugely important. It shows up a lot in October as well against the kind of pitching that you face. And yeah, those productive contact hitters are at a premium, but it's important that we continue to integrate that into our lineup. Now, I will say, like, it wasn't purely like lack of contact that cost us. There were other things that we weren't doing well, and we were just off. Didn't have our foundation, like our strengths didn't even show up offensively for much of the year and when it mattered most. But yeah, contact's an important part of the foundation, and I think you attack that by trying to bring in guys from outside who have a strong foundation of contact and can bring that to the table, and also continuing to make adjustments. We do have players who've made adjustments to strike out less and put the ball in play on a more consistent basis to their benefit in the past, and we need more of that as well.
How much more can you improve that internally? I know, Ian is a guy that shored up his strike zone a little bit, and this was a theme going back the last couple of off seasons, and you addressed that with some additions in your player development department. I mean, how much better can you get internally going forward with that?
Yeah, I think the ability, like bat to ball skills are fairly innate. Like it's you're either born with that ability or not, and the ability to make contact is something that you can teach around the margins. If you want, if you have an absolute rule that you require more contact, you have to find hitters who make consistent contact. You continue to teach it, and it is a significant part of development. And as I said, with Hap, especially, I think is a good example of someone who went back to the minor leagues, acknowledged the importance of a two-strike approach, of having a B swing, of adjusting his approach for the holes that he had and for the way pitchers were attacking him, and did a nice job of addressing his weaknesses to his benefit. And that will continue to be a part of every player's development here. But fundamentally, if you want more contact, the best way to approach that is to employ hitters who make contact. And there's more to offense than contact. You have to hit the ball hard. You have to control the strike zone. You have to get the ball in the air. There's a lot of things we can do better.
As far as the situation with baseball and finding players that make contact, that being able to project what type of offensive players will be productive. You keep hearing rumblings about the baseball being changed again. Do you have to be mindful as an organization that you can't always draft and develop players that are currently going to be successful in the realm of what baseball is all about in 21, 22, and 20?
No, I think baseball is dynamic, and it's always changing, and there's always going to be changes with the competitive landscape on the field, and that the best players always find a way to succeed regardless of the environment, and importantly find a way to make adjustments. And that's an area where we didn't come through this year. We had so much go right with our with our rotation and our bullpen and our defense, and even framing, base running, like just our attitude, and everything was there's so many things going well, and we had clear issues with our offense, and we were not able to make those adjustments, to our great detriment. And so you talk about forecasting exactly what the game might look like going forward. That just means there's going to be adjustments. We have to get better at making adjustments. That cost us this year.
Theo, how much does the effect of losing personnel in scouting departments and in other areas affect what you can do with your job?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you clearly. Can you please repeat that?
How much affect, is it a reduction of scouting staffs, personnel, affecting what you can do on your job?
Yeah, it's it is one of the tragedies in baseball this year that there are fewer jobs almost across the industry, and some wonderful men and women who've given a lot to this game have lost jobs and no longer have the support and the camaraderie and the foundation of baseball to lean on. And that's something that wears on all of us. And every organization is changed because of it. The very nature of working in baseball is changed because of it. There have been a lot of painful consequences of what the industry has gone through this year. And my thoughts are with those people who are now struggling without the security of the jobs they've had for a long time, especially given how much they've given to the game. So that's primary. Secondarily, does it impact what we do? Of course. Like, we're going to be smaller as an organization. Our scouting staff is smaller. Our scouts and our development staff, everyone in the front office, we're all going to have to be more versatile. We're going to have to take on more, approach our jobs in different ways, try to be more efficient. But there will be no way to fundamentally replace the people who are not working in baseball. And I look forward to a time when the country and the game are thriving again, and I wish that as many of those people as possible return to the game as quickly as possible.
Do you see in some cases some scouts doing pro as well as amateur assignments?
Yeah, as I said, sort of being as versatile as possible and is going to be important. And scouts who are used to working in one area are going to have to see different kinds of players. There'd probably be less of a bright line between scouting and development, between analytics and traditional scouting. We're gonna have to reimagine the way we evaluate players and the way we develop players.
Hey, Theo, if you don't mind, another one on the offense compared to what you did on the mound. It feels like between the pitch lab and even the alternate site, these advancements develop pitching better. I think like Jason Adam come out of nowhere. Do you feel like you've stalled in the hitting aspect of developing things and making adjustments that you have been able to do on the mound? Does that make sense?
I think a couple ways to answer that question. I mean, I'll start by saying, like, industry-wide, a lot of the advances in the last several years have benefited pitchers more than hitters. Just the nature of pitching. You start with the ball in your hands. You proactively decide what pitch you want to throw. You can dictate the action. There are more pitchers on rosters than there have been in previous years, so less is being asked of pitchers, and they have more resources to develop more scientifically. There have been great advances in developing velocity and spin and breaking stuff that's never been seen before in the history of the game. So I think industry-wide, it's been a struggle for hitters to keep up with that and to continue to adjust. That said, there have been a lot of breakthroughs on the hitting side. It might be a year or two behind. There might be some lag, but we made significant changes to our hitting infrastructure as well over the last year or two. I think we're as progressive and state-of-the-art as any organization when it comes to what we teach, how we teach it, the tools that we use to teach it. And we've had great success developing hitters throughout the minor leagues, and I expect that to continue. I think the area where we have not had this success that we want to have the last few years is helping hitters reach their full potential at the major league level and then maintaining that type of consistency. And because of that, we have to be really open-minded and honest about where we're falling short and be open to going back to the drawing board in every area we identify as a weakness, with the physical aspects of hitting, the fundamental aspects of hitting, especially the mental aspects of hitting. And look, if you're not meeting your own expectations in a certain area, you have an obligation to be honest about that, to be open-minded, to be resourceful, and to and to rely on people who've had a proven track record of success in those areas. So yeah, certainly that's the place we need to do better.
Theo, when you were talking about the coaching staff, you mentioned framing, and you brought Craig Driver in to help along those lines. And obviously, it's not just Craig. Wilson put in the work. Just what do you say about the job Wilson did to transform himself in that area, and the work that Craig did with the catchers?
Yeah, I think catcher framing was a big success this year and a terrific example of continued player development at the major league level and the importance of it. I'd been in, Wilson Contreras is a dynamic catcher, one of the very best in the game. But framing was not one of his strengths in the past. And he had worked on it in the past and put in a lot of effort. I think bringing in Craig Driver was a crucial part of the turnaround, and Wilson's open-mindedness and his work efforts and everything that he had attempted leading up to this year was part of the solution too. So he was at a point where he had tried a lot of different things. He was getting more comfortable getting outside of his comfort zone. All of a sudden you have somebody enter the organization with a proven track record of success working with catchers and improving their framing. And Craig did an outstanding job developing the proper relationships, presenting the information the right way. And Wilson and Vic were extremely open-minded, again, attacked the work and knew that they could benefit their pitchers and the whole organization by facing by trying to improve in that area. And the results were phenomenal. It was, we went from one of the worst framing teams to one of the best, and that really supported our pitching staff this year. So credit to Wilson and Vic and Drives and Rossi and Borzi and everybody involved in that process this year. But it's a good example of, by being resourceful and relying on the right experts and having the right open-mindedness and the right attitude, what you can accomplish even with proven players at the big league level, and how those improvements show up and help you win. So we need to apply that in other areas now too.
Hey Theo, just wondering, two questions. How would you grade yourself when you're going to talk to Mr. Ricketts? And then also, are you feeling the same now as you did at the end of your tenure in Boston? Is this the same kind of feeling, or is it different?
Yeah, I think when it comes to how I'll talk about the work that I've done and the work that we've done with Tom, it'll be, the same balanced approach with which I look at our players and our team. I think, we've accomplished an awful lot from, winning the division this year under difficult circumstances to, winning the Division III the last 5 years, and with a longer view, getting to the postseason 5 out of 6 years, as was our hope and expectation, the 3 CSs, the World Series. But, as you sort of tout those things and appreciate the importance of becoming an October regular and an upper echelon team that should contend for World Series titles every year, you also have to acknowledge that for as well as we've performed on the October stage, which is where history is written in 15, 16, and 17, that's how much we've fallen short of our expectations and how poorly we've performed in October since. And that's just something that you have to own. And that, again, that's ultimately where history is written. So I have a goal of, and I've been open about this. Like if you go back to the first press conference, that we wanted to build an organization for which the expectation would be that every October, or just about every October, when you turn on the TV, you see the Cubs playing, and we've done that. But the goal of doing that is to win the World Series and to make deep October runs. And that's something that was our hallmark at the first 3 years of the 6-year run. It hasn't been the last 3, so we have to own that. The second part of your question, do I feel the same? I feel the same now as I felt every day as a Cub, which is honored to be a Cub, privileged to be a Cub, lucky to be a Cub, and I view the world through a Cub-centric lens. So I want to do everything I can to contributing to this team, winning another division next year, and having better October performance next year, for setting the organization up for another long run of success, similar to the one that we've had over the last 6 years. So that's where my energies are. And I'm just mindful of my own strengths and my own limitations and my own perspectives. And, I think being self-aware is an important part of being a good leader. And so I bring that into these conversations as well.
Theo, how would you assess Rossi's work this year, transitioning? So many questions. Could he make the tough call with his friends, and how he handled the pandemic, a shortened season? Like, nothing easy about his first year.
Yeah. I think what we saw, what we experienced was a very successful first year for someone who's going to be a great manager here for a long time. Like we feel really good about having Rossi at the helm of this group, of any group, moving forward. And again, as I said last week on the conference call, if you set aside all the unique circumstances of 2020 and dealing with the coronavirus and the remarkable challenges that everyone in the industry faced because of what was going on in the country this year, he still had an outstanding season. He developed great trust with all the players. He was an outstanding leader of the coaching staff and of the group. He set high standards. He didn't back away from difficult conversations. I thought he saw the game extremely well. He took a bullpen that struggled early and played an important role in bringing it along to a point where it was a strength of the club as the season moved forward. Like, he just did a lot of things that great leaders do, and I thought it was an extremely successful first year. And I think one of his strengths too is self-awareness, and he knew what he didn't know. He was not afraid to ask for help from his coaches, from the different elements of the front office, and he's not afraid to learn from what didn't go perfectly this year. So I think we're in extremely good hands with Rossi going forward. I know every player that he touched this year feels exactly the same way.
Theo, when you look to that transition period for yourself, whatever that may come, do you have a sense for what will be next for you?
No, look, I think I've addressed it as much as is appropriate at this point. I'm a Cub. I think the status quo right now is the most likely outcome, and that I'll play a big role in what we do in 2021. I'm just realistic about the fact that at some point there's going to be a transition, and what's next for the Cubs is more important than what may be next for me. But I'm invested in the Cubs, and if it becomes appropriate, if there's a point in the future, whenever that may be, where it's appropriate to talk about myself and my next steps, and if those don't involve the Cubs, I'll be happy to answer all your questions. But we're all focused on how to be successful in 21, how to improve our postseason performance in 21, and how to build that long-term success.
Hey, Alex, real quick. Alex,
uh-oh.
I want to talk to you shortly about the rotation, especially the guys that contribute at some points. Mills was dependable for what he was before. Azalea showed some flashes. I think Tyson Miller, the second time, was a pretty good strike thrower. What's your assessment of the back end and guys that might step in next year?
I mean, I don't want to go into great detail about it, but I think, as I said earlier, I think we're fortunate to have, two top starting pitchers on good contracts, under control for a while, that any team would love to start a rotation with, and Yu Darvish and Kyle Hendricks. Those guys are our foundation now for our rotation. I think we were really pleased this year with the progress of Alec Mills and Adbert Azalea. Both guys took steps forward this year. I thought Mills was, as you said, dependable, but I think he was more than that at times. I think he showed a real ability to attack lineups even when they'd seen him before, to incorporate different approaches into his pitching, and to show some of the growth as a pitcher that is the hallmark of someone who is going to be adaptable enough to succeed as a starter for a long time. And then with Azalea, he really made great strides. I want to tip my cap to the work he put in and the support he had at South Bend with Craig Breslow and all the coaches there, Ron Vallone, Casey Jacobson, James Ogden, and others, with the work they put in on his slider, separating his breaking balls, adding velocity to his slider and spin, and really giving him a now major league weapon that he took right into some important games in the big leagues at the end of the year. So I think going into the year, we were hoping that Adbert could develop into a major league starter, and now we see one. And he's somebody I think is primed to slide into the rotation. That still leaves at least one open spot and the need to add some depth moving forward, as we had a number of pitchers who we were excited about who were primed to be at Double-A this year, who didn't have Double-A seasons. But I think with the benefit of some of the development that they did, and hopefully productive offseason and spring training, can at least provide major league depth next year. But we certainly have to seek some starting pitching and some starting pitching depth from outside of the organization too.
There seems to be some Cub pride of being a part of the organization, being part of the facilities and all the things that are Cubs now that might not necessarily been there before you guys showed up. How much do you take pride in the fact that when you hear Baez talking about the fact that he wouldn't want to go anywhere else because he couldn't imagine it being any better than it is in Chicago? What do you take out of that type of player that's been developed here?
Well, I mean, let's be honest here. This is a special organization, the Chicago Cubs, and it's been that way for over a century. There's a unique connection between the fans and the players and the organization as a whole. And that was the case long before any of us got here, and it'll be the case long after any of us lead. I think those of us who are lucky enough to be in leadership roles, and every person who comes to work at Wrigley Field, every player who puts on those pinstripes feels an obligation to sort of to further that connection with the fans, to enhance to build continue to build the organization, live and build its reputation, and to improve on this dynamic culture that we have. And certainly, since Tom Ricketts has taken over, and since this group of players has been here, the culture of the organization has, I think, gone to even another level where, yes, on the field, I would hope that now we represent getting to October on a regular basis and contending for World Series and winning the World Series. But off the field, under Tom's leadership, the Ricketts family's leadership, and with the way the players have behaved themselves and treated each other and been supported by the organization, I think we stand for a level of care and appreciation for each other, and appreciation for the fans, and connection with the fans that is really special. So I'm proud to have been a part of this, but it goes back a long ways, and under the Ricketts leadership, it's going to continue for a long time into the future too. But it is special. It is special. I was going to say it's wonderful that our players acknowledge that, and they've been a big part of building it as well.
Let Sully jump in. He's been trying for a while.
Thanks. We haven't mentioned Jed, but in the story by Kaplan, it basically suggested that when or if you do leave, that he just slides into the spot. Is that the way everyone's looking at it here?
Yeah, look, I think as I said, we've only had general discussions about a potential transition, whenever that may be. Nothing specific. I think obviously now's the time that you know to be thoughtful about it. You do have to start getting more specific and making some more decisions. But Jed is someone who's been a huge part of the success here at the Cubs and at the Red Sox before that. He's also someone who's already been a successful number one in baseball operations when he served as the general manager of the Padres. And, I recognize those qualities and everything that he brings to the table and how much he's done for this organization. And Tom and the Ricketts family do too. So that's obviously, a factor when you start to set out and discuss what a transition might look like. But have there been any decisions made, or is there any firm succession plan or transition plan in place? No, those are exactly the things that we have to talk about moving forward. But we're lucky to have Jed, and I think that's universally recognized around here.
A quick question about the offseason. Are executives operating with the assumption there won't be any sort of in-person meetings? I guess there's no GM meetings, winter meetings. And a quick question about the offseason. Are executives operating with the assumption there won't be any sort of in-person meetings? I guess there's no GM meetings, winter meetings. And how does that impact things with not seeing agents and other executives as well, if that's the case?
Yeah, we're just prepared to do everything virtually. I think that's given where we are in this country right now, that's the only way to ensure complete safety. And I think we've all been accustomed now to conducting business the way we are in this press conference through different apps and being creative and resourceful with in the virtual world. So we'll continue to do that. I think it'll be our first off-season approach in that. So we're gonna have to hold ourselves accountable to do a lot of outreach and spend a lot more time engaging on the phone, even more than normal, more regularly, more systematically, because you can't rely on I'll just see you at the winter meetings, or I'll just see you at the GM meetings, or let's go grab dinner and talk about this. We have to be thoughtful and systematic and over communicate.
Hey, Theo, I think we alluded to this earlier, but maybe didn't talk about it specifically. In this uncertain climate, this uncertain economic climate, and everything that's going to be different going into this offseason, do you anticipate that just even trying to move, just trying to make a baseball deal that might involve a high salaried player, would that be more difficult, or how challenging could that be?
Yeah, I think again, just uncertainty rules the day, and we have to hunt for information every day and try to make a proper forecast, because you can't always wait to get full information before you have to act and make decisions. But I think there are going to be certain fundamentals that are true of this winter and of this market that have been true for decades. And one of those is that, especially relevant in our situation, but that, a one-year deal for a really talented player is a valuable thing. And that's to our benefit, both with what we can do in constructing the 2021 team and having an additional year of control on certain players, and also potentially to our benefit in the trade market, or as we look to make some changes. So I just think that's a fundamental that, look, if you can bring back really talented players who've done some special things in this game on 1-year deals, and have those either to build your roster or to go out in the trade marketplace, that's a good position to be in.
Theo, there was some.
Okay, we'll do one more with Jordan.
Yeah, sorry. Just more of a housekeeping. There were some guys banged up or playing through things. Is anyone going to have to go for a medical check, or is there anything on the horizon on that front?
Yeah, I'm just going to double check the trainer notes as I talk to you, but I don't believe we have any procedures scheduled. So Chafin finished the year healthy and throwing well. Chatwood also considered healthy now. He progressed to live BP sessions and threw the ball really well and was under consideration for postseason rosters had we continued. Obviously, he wasn't stretched out, but we thought he could help us in the bullpen. His MRIs came back clean. Let's see. Quintana also obviously came back from the thumb, and then ultimately came back from the lat as well, and was pitching effectively at the end of the year with no limitations, considered healthy and ready for a full normal off-season progression. Ro Wick was making good progress on his oblique strain, but was somebody who was still a few weeks away, so he's going to continue to go through his rehab, and we'll probably get him to a point where sometime in mid-November we'll get him thrown again, just to make sure that everything is back to normal before he gets onto his normal off-season progression. So, no, look, injuries to our pitching staff were something we had to deal with this year, and it hurt us late and limited us a little bit in that first round. But we got to a point where those guys were with the exception of Rowe and Wick, we're back and ready to help.